Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I thought I would revisit my Adam Jones Epiphone Les Paul Custom. So why am I making another video on this same guitar? Well, to be honest, in the previous video I made on this guitar, I really don't think I did it justice. I was quite new to the whole talking to the camera thing, and yeah, I think I just rushed through it and didn't come off super positive, kind of came off quite negative about the guitar, which really isn't the way I feel about the guitar overall. I really do like this guitar. So I wanted to give it another go and show you it in a bit of a better light, and you know, now that I've got a little bit better, I think, at doing these videos, give it another chance. So with that out of the way, let's talk about what this is. Well, if you've been living under a rock, it's the Adam Jones Les Paul Custom Signature Model, based off of his 1979 Gibson Les Paul Custom. And of course it is in Silverburst. So Adam Jones has had a series of Les Pauls with Gibson first. So he had initially that run of custom shop Murphy Lab aged guitars, which were crazy expensive, sold out really quick, and yeah, were just a bit unobtainable to most people. Gibson then released a Les Paul Standard version in Silverburst, which I think has divided fans a little bit because, you know, it's a Les Paul Standard and not a Les Paul Custom, but it's still quite a cool guitar. It's got the uncovered bridge pickup, Silverburst finish, but it is like a solid black colour on the back of the neck and back of the guitar, I believe. And then finally they've come down to the Epiphone level with these guitars. But they're doing something a little bit different with the Epiphones. They're releasing 7 different models, albeit there's a rumour that there's an 8th, I'll get to that. And they'll all have different artwork on the back. I think there's 3 out now already. This is the very first. It's the Vela Bees version. And you know, the eagle-eyed among you will spot immediately that I have swapped this back plate out. The reason I've done that is the printing on there looked like it would scratch off pretty easily. It had like the Mark Ryden Vela Bees printing on there, just to let you know who the artist was. So I do still have that. It's safe in the case. I just swapped it out to avoid scratches. There's 800 of each of these being made, and like I said, there's 7 variants. 3 of them are already out. There's a rumour that there's an unannounced 8th version, which will be a plain kind of Silverburst back on the guitar. And might even be at a cheaper price point and not as limited as these ones were. So before we get into the specs of this guitar, if you are enjoying the content on the channel and you're enjoying this video, please do consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. It really does help out. Thanks very much. Cheers. Man reads off spec sheet time. Okay, so this guitar is quite unique in the Epiphone Les Paul Custom lineup. It's got some really specific features that aren't available on any of the other Les Paul Customs. So let's go through that. So it's got a 3-piece maple neck, so that's your first one that's really unusual, right? The rest of the guitars in the range are all mahogany necks. And that neck does have a volute at the headstock as well. I'll show that off in some footage. It's got a Adam Jones custom neck profile, so the neck carve is carved to his specifications. We've got a Graphtec nut, an ebony fretboard. I mentioned in my previous video about the Jerry Cantrell Epiphone Wino. You can check that video out up here. I think that's really important that these Epiphone Les Paul Customs have ebony fretboards, because you know, the Gibsons have that ebony fretboard, and it was a thing that always set the Epiphones apart for me in the lineup, was that, you know, they had those rosewood fretboards and they just didn't look right to me. And I think, you know, moving to ebony on these ones, it just made sense. And they've done that across all of the Les Paul Customs. It's not just these artist ones, so that's really cool to see. It's got a mahogany body with a full thickness maple top, and I've had the pickups out and had a look, and it's really got a chunk of of maple on the top there, which is cool. One really important point for me on this guitar is the finish. They've really nailed that aged silver burst look. Maybe you've seen some of the old Epiphone silver burst Les Paul Customs that have that kind of perimeter burst, you could call it, where it goes all around the edge of the front of the guitar and it doesn't have that teardrop shape. And then those guitars are also black on the sides and the back and on the back of the neck. Well, this one, it's got, firstly, it's an aged silver burst, so you've got that kind of yellowing of the lacquer, which makes it look like an old 70s guitar. It's close to the custom shop colour, but not exact. It's less green and more kind of edging on the kind of gold look. But I think it looks great, to be honest. It's one of the highlights of this guitar is that finish. And like I say, this one's got the silver burst on the sides, on the back of the neck, and on the back of the headstock. So that's really good in my book. It's pretty standard across the Epiphone range these days. It's got the lock tone bridge and stop tailpiece. They just clip on to the post, so when you're changing strings and what have you, they don't drop off like your Gibson counterparts would. Another unusual feature of this guitar is the diamond posi lock strap buttons. So you've got the little diamonds. It's supposed to be a bit of a strap locking system. Very 70s, very true to the late 70s Norlin era Les Paul Customs. Comes with CTS pots, of course, like all of the new inspired by Gibson range. So this guitar thankfully does have a bit of a pickup upgrade. It's got a Seymour Duncan distortion in the bridge. Unfortunately, it does have an Epiphone pickup in the neck. That's a Pro Bucker custom, and it's reverse mounted like Adam does on his own guitars. A bit of a point of contention for a lot of people at the price point this guitar is at. It is an expensive Epiphone, so why they didn't opt to put two Seymour Duncans in it, who knows. Another cool feature is a new protector case. It's a reissue of a 70s style Gibson chainsaw case, and they are really cool. They look like they'll offer a lot of protection. These reissues are made by Gator, who have, a long history of making hard cases for instruments. But yeah, really cool case. Not going to go on about that too much longer because it's just a case at the end of the day. Thankfully, this one doesn't have any branding on it or any naming like the Jerry Cantrell model. This is just a, from the outside, it's just a black hard shell case. And the final thing to mention, of course, is that artwork. I've already mentioned the artwork on the back is by the artist Mark Ryden, but there's also artwork on the back of the headstock by Adam's wife, Karen Faust. Really cool. I'll show some shots off of that. We'll get some beauty shots and what have you. But yeah, that's the specs. So my thoughts on this then. Well, like I mentioned, I don't think I did a great job of expressing how much I do like this guitar in my previous video. It's a great quality instrument, but then you would expect it to be at the price point it's at. I think the price is really the biggest downfall of this guitar. It's so much money compared to the other Les Paul Customs in the catalogue. Even compared to the Jerry Cantrell, which is a signature model, still in production, still available to buy. That guitar cost £750 when I got it. I think it's gone up a little bit, maybe getting near to £800. But when I bought this, it was £1,250. That's a lot of money for an Epiphone. They're justifying it by limiting it to $800 per art variant and trying to make it a kind of collector's guitar. I have no intentions of this being a collector's guitar that sits in its case, stored away. This is out on my guitar rack. I play it regularly. I really love it. The only thing I've done to kind of protect its value, if you like, is remove those plates so they don't get scratched up. But honestly, guitars for me are meant for playing, and I'm going to play this. The other thing to mention about the price as well is it does seem to have gone up. The latest model that came out a couple of weeks back has had a £100 price increase in the UK. So that's £1,350. That's so much money. I mean, you could buy entry-level Gibsons at that range. A couple hundred more and you're getting close to Les Paul standard prices. It's a bit of a hard sell for a lot of people, and I get it. The ironic thing, of course, is that, again, I've said similar about the Jerry Cantrell model. I'm not a massive fan of Adam Jones and Tool. I do like Tool, and I respect Adam Jones as a guitarist. No shade on him at all. That's not what I mean. I just mean that it's not something that I listen to regularly. I do have the old record back there, but it's not I'm not an obsessive fan that had to have his signature guitar. I really wanted a Silverburst Les Paul, but for me it had to be a proper teardrop Silverburst with the burst on the sides and the back of the neck and what have you. Probably would have preferred it without the artwork, if I'm completely honest. And you know, if and when that rumoured non-artwork variant comes out, maybe I'll pick that one up and move this one on. But for now, sticking in the collection. A couple of small things, I did mention it in my previous video about this. Epiphones can have some finishing issues. Now, thankfully, the only real finishing issues with this one are the binding. There's a couple of spots where it's not been scraped very well, so you've got some weird overlapping. There's maybe one tiny spot on the neck here where the paint didn't quite take properly, but I mean, you can barely notice that, by the way. It's not glaringly obvious. And then one of the things with this one is how straight this line is against the binding. So it kind of wobbles like that. It's not a super straight line. I've seen that on a couple of other ones as well. I mentioned in my Jerry Cantrell video that that one is near perfect. So they can nail these guitars. But you know, they're mass produced in a factory in the Far East. These things are never going to be perfect. And you know, if you get one that plays well, then worry about that, I think, more than anything. The same thing as with the Jerry Cantrell. It had scratchy frets, so I did a fret polish pretty much straight away. Did a bit of a setup. Guitar plays really well, no uneven frets or anything like that. So yeah, got no complaints on that front. Sounds good. Could have had a better pickup in the neck position, you know, at the price point. Again, that price point, especially on those more recent ones where they've had a price hike. Really, it should have come with a Seymour Duncan in the neck as well. Other than that, I really like it. So I'm sorry anyone that watched my previous video and went, oh, he's really negative about that. I really like this guitar. It's staying in the collection for sure. At least until maybe I get one without the artwork. But hey, you know, I'll probably keep this at the end of the day. I've paid the money for it now. Tuners, of course. I nearly forgot the tuners. So that's one thing that people have been kind of complaining about this guitar a little bit, is the quality of the tuners that they've put on it. Again, the price point, you would expect top-notch hardware on all of these, and it does look like they cheaped out a little bit on the tuners to match the Schala style of the Gibson and Adams original. They work perfectly fine. I've had no tuning problems whatsoever, but yeah, they do feel a little bit cheap. And the other problem with them as well is that the screw holes don't line up with, you know, like a set of Grovers, so you couldn't easily drop in another set of tuners without having to re-drill holes. And do you want to re-drill holes on a guitar that's limited to 800 units and is a bit of a collector's guitar? Maybe you can get some actual Schalas that will be straight swaps. It's something I want to investigate down the line, but I'm not in any mad hurry to do it. But it's something you should bear in mind. So I'll do a quick demo. I'll just play through each pickup, get you some different sounds so you can hear what the stock pickups sound like. And then I've got a demo loop that I'm going to do some noodling over. Yeah, cool. On to the demo. Well, guys, I hope you got a good idea of what this guitar sounds like in all the different pickup positions and some of that noodling. Let me know what you think about the guitar in the comments. I really want to hear some feedback on this guitar. What do you think about the specs? What do you think about that price? But yeah, let me know in the comments. Well, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, thanks again so much for watching. And again, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you're enjoying the content. If you liked this guitar and you want to check out a similar video, check out the Jerry Cantrell Wino review I mentioned earlier. If you want to check out something slightly different, maybe have a look at this review I did of the Origin Effects Halcyon Green Overdrive, their take on the Tube Screamer. Alright, well, yeah, thanks for watching and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.